Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to my hobby home. My name is Cathy. Thank you so much for joining me today. What we are going to be doing is working a project out of our perfectly pieced box. So let me show you the project that I am going to do, and I'm going to give you a few pointers and tips about how to start out doing this. These are things that I have just learned on this. So, when I got my box, this is the first time I'd ever seen this box, and I really didn't know how to go about it. When I was charged for my January box, I received a download. Well, I received a zip file that I needed to download, and I downloaded it, but I really didn't know what to do with everything. So I guess I'll go on and get into that part first. What you need to do first is go through all of the information you receive. Some of it is paperwork that you do need to read. I will show you some things that you may want to do. This is one of the things received, and this is a general resource guide. It has lots and lots of information. I'm just going to show you. I printed this front and back. I will create me a binder to put all of my projects in, all of my patterns, all of the information I received. So this, number one, is something you definitely want to print down. The next thing, when you get your box, it is going to have an insert in it. Now, it's hard for me to turn it to show everything. I'm making sure there's, well, unless you have the file, it's really not going to matter. But what I am making is this, I guess it's called like the lumbar pillow project right there. So it's a little pillow. It takes 3 of the 4-inch squares to make. I did do a practice. So this is my practice. That is what it turned out looking like. So let me just kind of tell you how we get started. When you get your box, you are going to have, let me open it up. This tells you, the single block with quilting, all of the instructions. On page 6, it tells you, like cutting sizes for the blocks, and it tells you to pick your project. So the first thing you need to do is choose your project. Well, first thing you need to do, choose your block size. But that's really going to be determined by your project. So I chose my project. This is the one that I chose. I printed these double-sided. But let me tell you. So my second side, this shows, and I don't know what it is, but when I printed it, it separated stuff, made it crazy looking. So I probably need to go in there and do some settings. This tells me, like, for each piece of fabric, what sizes I need cut. And on the front side, there is that grid that's got it all wrote out, sort of like foundation paper piecing. Well, so I cut all my fabric like this. Don't do that. Before you do that, on the next page, this tells you your layout, how to lay your fabrics out, how to cut them. So, yes, I cut mine wrong, and that made one of my pieces of fabric too small, so I had to improvise. So, but luckily it wasn't in the rows that needed to be improvised. It's in the pillow part that needed to be improvised, and it's a big part. It's the part that goes right through the center here. So what we're going to do today, though, is just start with how to do the flower. Now, I'm going to try to bring you guys around so you can look on it and see straight overhead what it is looking like. But I know that's going to be a bit difficult for me because I am going to have to, in between stitches, trim it, and then that may be in the way. So we're just going to try it and see how it goes. But first thing you have is your instructions. This booklet does tell you each step. You know, like step 1, 2, 3, 4. But I'm going to bring you guys around and I will show you. I have all of my fabrics on my quilt easel. And I've shown this to you guys a lot. It is down in the description, guys. This is a game changer for me. It is down in the description. This is the same exact thing in the description as what I've ordered. You will love this. So it has made my job so much easier. What I have done, I have taken my hoop. And on this, it tells you that you need ultra light mesh cutaway stabilizer or light mesh cutaway stabilizer. I'm using what I have. I have a medium weight cutaway stabilizer. That's what I have. That's what I'm using. You will need to have your iron ready because you will need to press between cuts. I have these double bend medical scissors. This is very sharp. Be careful. I also have the fabric for my third block laid down here on the table because I'm going to use it off of my prop-it board first. So y'all just kind of hang here with me. I'm going to bring you around so you can watch this happen. Also, I am going to jump in and let you know, you will need, oops, I picked up some pieces of fabric there. You will need some batting. These are, since my block is a 4 or 4.5 by 4.5, the batting that we are to cut is 5 inches squared. So, one moment. Okay, so here we are with our hoop with our stabilizer in it. I am going to be doing 2 of the pieces in this hoop. So what I am going to do is just leave the first one in and then do the second one. But we are going to start with our instructions. This is the single block with quilting. Make sure you can see that. And I am just going to follow the instructions for this all the way from step 1 to, I'll show you here. It's got quite a few steps. The very end piece is step 69 right here. Step 69, this is our trimming instructions here. So what I am going to do is start with my first one. What we have to do is we've loaded the embroidery file. And then we've hooped the stabilizer. I already have my file up here on the screen. I know you are not turned down to see that. But I have a string here. You may not be able to see it. But the first thing I'm going to do is stitch the batting placement line. So this is actually step 2. And I'm keeping this thread out of the way. Now just trim it. Okay, so our next step is to place the project batting completely covering the placement line. This is the placement line right here. I need to get that string out of the way. Now, for some reason, my machine is not letting go of that thread. So what I have to do is go up in there and break it. So now that we have this on here, I pull this out of the way, and my next step, you'll see me flipping pages here because I'm making sure I'm following it completely. It is stitching the batting tack down line. Okay, so we've got to get that thread out again. Now, next thing I need to do is I need to take my scissors and trim it close to that line. I'm going to take my project off the thing, and I will trim it, laying it flat on my table here. Maybe you can see what I'm doing. I know I'm going to be in the way. This is what I will do. I'll trim it away close to that line. The trimming, I think, is what takes most of the time. But it is a very important part of it, because in some parts I did that test and I did see where I thought, well, maybe I'll just leave it and then I'll trim it all at the end. You cannot do that. You need to trim it as you go when it says to trim, because if you don't, you may end up with some very bulky areas in it. Okay, so now I have that trimmed up. See how nice that looks on there. Going to slide that back under the hoop. Get my thread here. Now the next thing, it is going to stitch the piecing template. Okay, since we had a thread breakage there, I just rethreaded my needle and I went back a few stitches, and we're just going to start back over. I didn't go all the way back, but okay, so now the next step we are going to do is take our very first piece, and we are going to lay it over and I just press the button with my finger here and hold this thread out of the way. Now what this is the stitch line. Now see, I might not have put that far enough down, but that's not going to hurt anything, because this is, it covers up what it's supposed to. So now what I have to do is trim. I have to trim the fabric close to that stitch line. So anytime I have to trim, I am going to remove my hoop from the machine. And this time I'm going to turn the hoop this way so I can press that fabric up And I just trim that little bit off, because this is where we're going to start trimming and pressing, and then a stitch line. Grab that thread again. So now I have to place the second fabric on that stitch line. Now I'm leaving it on the hoop there. I just line it up with that fabric. And this is just the first two pieces, sort of like foundation paper piecing here. How you stitch the first one down and then you lay the other one on top. Now that first one was right side up. This second one is face down. Now we've got the thread. We've got to get it out so we can take this off again. Now what I do is I do take my hoop off and I press this open now. Okay, that is pressed flat now. It may not look like it, but it is. I've got my thread here. So the next thing I do is I hold my thread out. It's going to do another stitch line. And see, you can easily trim your threads once they get started. We go to put another fabric on, so we have done our stitch line. And now what I need to do is trim close to that stitch line. Let me get that off. We're going to pull that up and just stitch straight across. See, I'm cutting that close to that stitch line. You're always going to trim the short edge of it. Our next move is to put our next piece of fabric. We're going to lay that on that stitch line. If you're able to do this without removing your hoop from your machine, then that may be the best thing. I like to double check and make sure my fabric is where it needs to be. But I'm going to hold this thread out of the way again. You'll see it pulled it out, that thread out. So our next thing is we are going to push that thread and press it. Fold the fabric back out and press it. I'm looking at the thread and it gets me confused. But I'm going to press this fabric out. Now our next step is it is going to give us another stitch line. I'm not trimming any of this because I don't really think that's enough to trim. Let me see. Yeah, well it is. I guess if my scissors will get under it, it is enough to trim. It does show doing a trim. I can't handle these scissors very well under here. Okay, so our next thing is to put our next fabric. And we're always putting our fabric wrong side. This is the right side, this is the wrong side. We're always putting our fabric wrong side up. I've lined that up on that stitch line. And I press that button again to get my stitch line in. Now what I will do is press this one open, and I will continue this on until I have all of the pieces put on here. Okay, y'all, now you see all of our pieces are on here. They cover up that initial stitch line. So what is going to happen now is this is going to do a stitch trimming line. Now, we are not going to trim just yet. Well, I guess we could, but I'm not going to. Or I'll see if I'm going to. So I'm just going to go on and do the stitch line, and I'll see if I want to trim it. I think what I am going to do is not trim it yet. And I am going to go straight on into the quilting. Y'all, this part is fabulous. Okay, now I am going to go on and do the next. I'm going to go in and do the next one. So I'm going to do a second one down here. So what I have to do is I have to go back because I'm going to have to move it. So I have to click some buttons here. And I have to scroll it down. And it's on my top left corner, so I have to make sure. Okay, so it looks like it is down past that corner there, but let's check to make sure we're going to be good down here. I think we are. And we'll check our bottom right. Okay, so what we are going to do is go back to our screen. And the first thing that we are going to do is our stitch line for our batting. And I'm going to do this and then I'll be right back. But y'all aren't going to have to see all this a second time. Well, friends, we are done. Let me show you this. I'm taking it off of the machine now. You will see I have two here. I have not taken them off yet because I wanted you to see how they looked. Now that I have them off, I know that I am to trim both of these at 4.5 inches. We do have a trim line around this. So let me get my straight edge so I can cut this and I will show you what they look like. Okay, friends, start to finish making 2 of our 3 pieces took us about an hour and 20 minutes. But you know, I did talk a good bit at the beginning. But another tip when making these, if you are going to press, make sure that you have a small enough iron to go in your hoop because you don't want to be unhooping anything. So guys, next time we come back with this project, we will be making our lumbar pillow. So I hope you do come back. Give me a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please click on that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss a single thing. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. I do try to respond to each and every comment personally. And as always, until I see you again, I hope you have a very blessed day. Bye, guys.